One, two, three.
Welcome to the Smartest Amazon Seller podcast. Coming at you, we've got a few little news items. This is 2026. Things are moving. Obviously, an interesting, exciting time to be an entrepreneur on Amazon. Lots of different ways to succeed. I've got an example. So he's kind of like a junior co-founder. Michael White has been with me at SmartScout for 5 years. Actually, before that, he was with me at BuyBoxer for like 4 years. So worked with him for a long time. And last month, he left me to become an Amazon seller. So that's kind of insane that someone who actually just kind of like, worked with when we were a large reseller or accelerator, has seen that stage, seen a little bit of the agency stage, and then has seen SmartScout data. He spent about 6 months finding a supplier for a product that he was bullish on, and it's gone so well that I can't pay him enough. So he has already done $1 million in revenue, and he launched in August. So he did that on the side. That should say something. That is the counterpoint to what I'm also going to talk about on today's podcast. That it's harder than ever, or that the little guys are losing. I did I posted a documentary. We worked on this for like 4 or 5 months, a little bit too long. You've probably heard some of the opinions. It's on YouTube now. It's called Death of the Amazon Seller, and got a really good reaction. I spoke to some journalists from NBC. I've got a lot of DMs from people that appreciated what it was. I even had someone told me that they are not going to sell on Amazon because of that video. I'm like, all right, I was just trying to convey the data that I'm seeing, that there are fewer new Amazon sellers, and that the incremental revenue on Amazon is going to large brands, it's going to large sellers, and it's going to Chinese sellers. And there's lots of reasons why, but it also just makes sense. There's only so much like real estate for any given product that you search for on Amazon, and whoever's got the most money is going to come out on top. So that it's not a huge surprise. But the thing is like, there's still this counterpoint of Michael White leaving and doing he found a product, he found a trend, and I'm actually pretty bullish on like chasing trends. It's amazing this world we live in, and how like trends that start in the podcast ecosystem, they make their way to YouTube, then they make their way to like people purchasing stuff. That's totally true in like beauty and health and supplements, and maybe even grocery. There's just trends. There's trends. I'm bullish on it. So I've started to show off more trends data inside of SmartScout. So like, for example, let's take the creatine segment. Creatine is on a massive trend. It's doubled in revenue in the last year. It was already at hundreds of millions, and it's just doubled. There's a lot of like conversations about research on it. So like, that's just like what's happening. And so people that are like in the creatine space, they're all doing well. But I did a quick analysis that there's different creatine markets. There's expensive creatine, there's inexpensive creatine, there's CreaPure, there's creatine gummies, there's creatine marketed just for women. And the overall creatine market's growing about 80, 90%. Some of those markets like gummies and creatine for women and CreaPure, they're 150% or even 300% growth annualized. So pretty cool to see that like inside of a trend, there are sub-trends. And that's like specifically the data that I'm working on. If you're in SmartScout, you look at the subcategories, search terms, you'll see those trends today. But it was actually that insight that led to my Michael leaving SmartScout and starting his brand. He saw a clear consumer trend. He's not public about his brand just yet. Hopefully one day we'll get him to talk about it more. But I have to share the story that counterbalances the fact that like it's harder. You know, right now, if you're a new fledgling creatine brand, good luck. Unless you know an insight, then you're going to have a hard time. In fact, I would actually just do what I just talked about. If you were going to launch a creatine brand, I would look for a sub-segment that is growing faster than the macro and just market to that. So like whether it's expensive or, gummies, something, find a trend inside the trend that that's a way you could start out. I don't know how it's going to end. We don't know how creatine is going to do in long term. I think the science is behind it, that it'll obviously stay one of the a mainstay in the supplement space. But and if I were to start, I would just like take an idea inside of it and build a brand there. So now what's interesting is there's another kind of little trend. This news that I just found in the data. I saw some people saying that like, oh no, there's not a lot of Chinese sellers like repositioning their business outside of the US. I've got data that says that's not true. There are plenty of Chinese sellers that are changing their country of business. Of the top 10 that have changed, the largest Amazon sellers that have changed their business, these are on average, $50 to $100 million a year Chinese sellers. They are moving to either Hong Kong or the US. And sure, there's reasons they don't, people do sometimes click through to see like, okay, where's this seller from? And everyone likes to see good old US of A that can increase their conversion percent, by 1 or 2%. That's one reason. I think the real reason is that the Chinese government is asking Amazon for revenue numbers. Just like what happens in the US, where Amazon does report to tax agencies the revenues of an entity, of an LLC. China's asking for that data so they can reconcile with what these sellers are allegedly reporting, just to make sure that they're doing proper accounting, something that we've learned a lot that sometimes can get fudged by overseas sellers. It's a lot easier to hide stuff when you're dealing with different currencies and banking that doesn't always line up one-to-one. It's not completely straightforward doing business in the US and doing business in China. I've looked at like what it would take to get SmartScout live in China and clearly have backed away for a variety of reasons. But really interesting that Chinese sellers are doing this. It totally makes sense. I get it. And yeah. So then final thing in this podcast, this is just me. So we're getting quick to the point. I like doing this by myself. I want to talk about one of my favorite new tools that I have found. That's ECDB, the e-commerce database. The founder of Statista left and he started an e-commerce data focused company. Think of it like SmartScout but one level up and looking at all retailers globally. So they have data regarding all the major marketplaces and retailers and e-commerce that's happening on a global front. And they've done a recent report, their 2026 report kind of shows anything you could ever want to know about retailers in certain regions, the US, Europe. Amazon is the number one global e-commerce retailer, just barely. There's a few Chinese focused companies that are just behind them. Most of that revenue they're doing in China. So think of like names like Pinduoduo. They're the owner of Temu, or actually TikTok and Tmall and all that jazz. So Amazon is just eclipsing them. They may not be the leader forever. Some of these Chinese marketplaces, they do so well in China that they might win. There's just a different adoption of e-commerce in China. Back to those little super apps. Okay, so those are kind of the news insights that I'm seeing that I think is novel. There's more news, but I think you've probably already heard it. So I will leave you back to your day. Thank you for listening so much. I'm bullish and bearish on the state of Amazon, and but clearly the marketplace is going to grow this year. So whatever you thought of the opportunity 2 years ago, it's only bigger. So just keep that in mind. Okay. Thanks, everyone. Take care, and we'll catch you on the next one.
1, 2, 3.